Welcome to Shalom World Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Real Women, where we talk about the real issues facing modern-day Catholic women and how we can navigate this journey with grace and purpose. My name is Von Hosking.
And I'm Karen Doyle. In today's episode, we're going to be exploring a really sticky subject, and that is the topic of forgiveness. This is a really hard one. I know I have struggled in my own life at times to really forgive in the face of injustice when we've been wrong and when we've been wounded. It's a really, really hard thing to do, but it's
really
what
hard.
Christ calls us to. It's at the heart of the Christian message.
It is, and it really calls us to go deep and to really humble ourselves in front of the other person or in front of the harm that's been done to us.
Jesus hung on the cross and he said, Father, forgive them.
Yeah.
That was the ultimate injustice. When he hung on the cross, he'd done nothing wrong,
Yeah.
yet he was able to forgive. So we really need the grace of God. We need to ask for the grace to come in and help us to forgive and to release people from how they've offended us.
I'm really looking forward to unpacking this today, especially hearing the story that we're going to be hearing today about a really deep forgiveness in such tragic circumstances.
Faith and service have been the common threads throughout Bridget's life. Just over 2 years ago, Bridget Sakr's 11-year-old daughter, Veronique, was killed along with her 3 cousins by a drunk and drugged driver in Oatlands. The business leader and mother of 2 says she will never stop grieving, but the tragedy has inspired her to give back to the community that enfolded her family in love and support. When the tragedy struck Bridget, she had already built a successful career in financial services and co-founded a mortgage company with her husband, Craig McKenzie, to assist people to purchase their own homes. In November 2020, she created an online grief support network she called Heartfelt, standing for families experiencing loss and trauma, which has now been extended into Sydney Catholic schools. She has also joined the Legion of Mary apostolate in Homebush West, volunteering every week with a focus on apostolic work to support people in the community in need.
Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Bridget Sakr. Bridget, thank you so much for joining with us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Karen and Von. Thank you for having me today.
Before we dive into looking at forgiveness and looking at how we actually move through grief and loss, I'm wondering if you can just give us a little bit of broad background about who you are.
I'm a mother of 2 beautiful children, Veronique and Michael. Michael's 16 and Veronique went to heaven at the age of 11. So I have one in heaven and one on earth. I'm married. I've got 3 siblings. I'm number 2, 2 girls, 2 boys. Born and raised in Sydney, so I haven't travelled too far from that. Like everybody, went to school, went to uni. Business and economics was something I really, I loved growing things, so that's sort of, and I love people, I love connecting with people. And from there I started my career in banking and finance with the Commonwealth Bank as a graduate. And then I moved into an insurance company that really insured banks and building societies and non-banks against any loss that's incurred by borrowers if they lose their job or they get sick. So I worked there for 23 years, and because it's got such a purpose and seeing people into home ownership, I flourished and grew the business. And then from there, up to 23 years, I set up my own business alongside my husband. And basically I used all the skills and all the relationships I'd created in the industry to be able to design products that helped graduates who come out of uni into home ownership, and whether they could be in IT, engineering, doctors, lawyers, accountants, very broad, where they wouldn't have their 20% deposit.
Yeah.
They have a very small deposit. But my aim and our aim was to get them into home ownership. So found a funder who believed in my vision, and they funded our product design, and we distributed to at least 5,000 to 7,000 brokers. And then sold that last year. I had the tragedy happen, and from there I've established an online grief platform to help families experiencing loss and trauma and accompany them. And then most recently we've opened up a cafe. So, and it's got quatre, which is 4 in French, honouring the 4 children. especially my daughter, she loved cooking and people and eating. And so I've always been a person who has liked to, I'm a busy person, and I always like being connected with people. Yeah. And that, whether that be in a business transaction, whether that be in a community sense, being hospitable, I've always, loved
You've really
being that.
liked that.
And I'm also sort of, looking after my mother too, who's not well. So there's a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's a little bit about me.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's great.
I love, cooking and having people over for a bite to eat around the table. I mean, drinking a nice glass of wine with them. Just reading, just the everyday life, the challenges that come your way.
And one of those big challenges happened to you 2.5 years ago, where your family experienced an incredible tragedy. Can you share a little bit about that experience and what happened?
So we've got a cousin who, her daughter was having her 21st, and I remember getting the invitation, and I was in the office, and I said to my husband, do you think we should go to this? Because I always have to think about, I'm a single mother, I wasn't married, and where will I put my children for the evening, who's going to look after them? But my daughter was very close to Danny and Layla's daughter and their cousin, Mabel, and it happened to be Mabel's birthday as well. So I thought, I can leave Veronique there, and even Michael, because Anthony and Michael are also 2 weeks apart. So, Layla said, no problem, bring her over. And I was so excited, and I thought, okay, well, that's not that night's set. And, I dropped her off. But Michael, actually, I should replay that. Michael said, Mum, is it okay if I don't go? This is my first night. Tomorrow's my first rugby soccer game, because he does NPL soccer.
Yeah.
Can I stay home because I can't have a late night. I got to have all the energy to play well. And I thought, look, I'm not going for long. Just going to this party, come back, pick her up. And my girlfriend said she'll check on him a few times. So I thought, okay. So he stayed home. And I really vividly remember Veronique saying to Michael when she left, bye, Michael, I'll see you later. And I thought, that's unusual for them to actually formally say goodbye to each other.
Yeah.
Anyway, I dropped her off, and I was in such a rush. We live our lives so rushed.
Of course.
Yep.
Bang, 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 bang.
We were
Get it
just
all
saying
done.
that.
Yeah.
Every minute is accounted for.
Yes.
Every minute. I dropped her off. I said, put your shoes on. She had her thongs on. Put your sand shoes on, Veronique. And I said, did you want to stay for the night? Because she had her bag packed in case. She said, Mum, I'll let you know. I said, okay, no problem.
Yeah.
And I knocked on the door, and Danny opened, and he said, is Veronique hungry? And I said, she can always eat. Just ask her, but make sure her mobile phone's charged so she can ring me. Anyway, I get home, and Craig meets me at my place, and we go to the party in the city, Surrey Hills. I just got up the stairs, literally just got up the stairs, and Danny rang. And I thought, why is he ringing me? Like he should have been not far behind me. And he said, Bridget, I've lost my children. And I went, well, okay. I thought, he's just telling me they've gone for, they've left the house. They've gone for And I thought, oh, okay. He goes, yeah, they're dead. And I went, I don't know what I did from there, whether I was standing but I do remember saying and thinking, how do I ask about Veronique? He's just told me his kids have died. I go, who's died? I was trying to, and I said, I couldn't make sense of what he was saying or what I was hearing. And when I said, what about Veronique? He said, you just need to come to the golf course. Oh, Craig was next to me. I don't know what happened from there, but all I remember is taking my shoes off and running to the car and going and praying the Hail Mary, the Our Father. And Craig kept calling Danny, and he's going, no, it's not good. But not good to me was, I didn't want to go there. I called my sister and I called my brother, and look, something's happened, please meet me, something's not right. We got there, and there was lights everywhere, people everywhere, roads taped, and we said to the police, look, I said, I'm her mum. My daughter's in there. She's in there. She's in the accident. They go, sorry, you got to go around the other way. And I know we got around the other way, and sorry, you can't come in. But I'm her mum. I need to go see my daughter. No, I'm sorry.
It must have
I
been
just on
so
the
hard.
footpath, like anybody else. And I don't know. I remember then I rang my girlfriend. Someone had rung my girlfriend who was checking in on Michael a few times. She brought him, and I could see him rock up, and he was screaming, and I don't know. That was, and then now in hindsight, why did I go to the golf course? I should have been going to the hospital. You know what I mean? Like it's just, but it was a crime scene. They weren't going to let you in.
No.
And
how many children, Bridget, were killed in that
7 children
accident?
were hit. And we can't forget the 3 survivors.
Yeah, no.
We cannot forget them because we do talk about the 4 children.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there were 7. He hit those children on 130 kilometres per hour.
And how has your faith, can you share more on that, how your faith over the last, 2.5 years particularly, how has that helped you through?
Look, I would not be even able to get out of bed if it wasn't for my faith, because of my faith, because of the way I've been raised, because of what I believe through the core of my heart and soul is that Jesus died and rose again. And he did say that those who follow him, and, you know, my daughter had her sacrament, so she's lived a Christian life, and we would always pray in the car, that was our prayer time, because almost lived in the car, you know, to school and sports, and live in the car most of the time. Faith gets me up because I know one day we're going to be reunited.
Yeah.
And that gets me up. And in a tragedy, and it's not an accident, people call it an accident, this is a collision that could have been avoided. It's definitely a criminal act that occurred. You can go both ways. You can turn your back and say, God, how could you do this? Or you can say, God, life is about suffering. I now understand that Jesus suffered. Mother Mary suffered. How much did she suffer? She watched her son die. She had to give birth. How hard was it for her to give birth? She lost her protector. She lost her son.
Yes.
You know, she lost so much too. But she never gave up. And she never gave up hope. And there was acceptance. My faith has, you know, as much as I would have said, I'm a Catholic and I go to church and I pray, my relationship with the cross has completely changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I understand the pain. And I used to always pray the 7 sorrows of Our Lady. And I used to think, oh my God, Mother Mary, what have you been through? But I'm so glad I used to pray those 7 sorrows because they've given me strength.
Yeah.
They've given me strength.
The power of forgiveness is something that, you know, defines the cross and defines our Christian life. And it's something that I guess you and your sister-in-law and brother-in-law have been known for, this bold forgiveness that happened very early on in your journey and happened, you know, privately, publicly.
Yep.
We're talking here about a really unjust tragedy.
Forgiveness, I really believe if you open your heart to God, genuinely open your heart, then that Holy Spirit flows through to you and there's an inner peace. And with that inner peace, you start to look at things differently and you start to think, God, there was a purpose for this, as I said earlier. And that forgiveness, Lord, you forgave, I forgive. I have to, you know, Our Father. You say the Our Father every day. And we talk about forgiveness in the Our Father, but are they just words?
Yeah.
No. We've, you know, and doing it earlier on has really been able to help me get to this point.
How were you actually able to do that early on?
Because I opened my heart from day one. I did not shut my heart to God. I just said, God.
You made a choice.
I made a choice to open my heart and to let him speak to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, his words are forgive.
Yes.
So that you can carry your cross and you can keep going. And I've got great things planned for you. And I do believe he chose us for a reason, the 2 families, to get out there and spread the message. Because it's interesting when you look at media, they don't normally go towards forgiveness. They normally go towards something a bit more sensational. But I really believe the power of the Holy Spirit was actually working through, if anyone could say, the media to actually grab those words. And, you know, Layla said, I think I forgive, because that's what her fundamental core in her
being.
upbringing and being is forgiveness.
Yeah.
And you teach your children to say sorry. You teach your children, you know, when you've done wrong, there are consequences to pay. And we're not saying that there's no justice. There are consequences. How do we learn from our mistakes if there are no consequences? Like a mother who loves her child. But when they've done something wrong, there are consequences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
you've got to separate the two. And that is really the core of what happened, you know, the openness, the making that choice. I chose to forgive. I chose to let go so that I could continue doing good things. And I think by doing that, I've had some people say, well, almost resenting that, but how could you, look what he did. But if I focus on that the whole time, how am I going to create some good in this world?
Yeah.
And God's actually given me a lot of gifts through talents and skills in my life. Years of, being out there, running businesses, running teams, speaking in front of hundreds of people. He wants me to take all that and spread the news and spread the word of Christ.
So Bridget, we've been talking about forgiveness, and forgiveness is a huge part of grief. But can you talk us through more grief and how you move through that?
For me, the ultimate grief is obviously losing Veronique. But there's, a lot of people who get divorced or lose their jobs, or there's so many different forms of grief. Losing a pet, grief can come in many forms. What I really learnt from day one, when I went to drive to the Rookwood Cemetery to pick Veronique's plot, and the children are buried together, which is beautiful, is that you do grieve alone, but you heal together. And when I got there was a lady called Patricia Thomas from Grief Care. They're part of Catholic Cemeteries and Crematorium in Rookwood. And she said, I'm here to accompany you.
What a beautiful word.
That's what they do. That's what Grief Care does. It accompanies families, not just up until the funeral, but after that. And that's the most critical thing about, we live in a countercultural society where grief is not really something that's in fashion, right? You don't really, it's hard to show your feelings of tears. When people cry, you go, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cry, or I didn't mean to make you cry. But crying is an emotion, just like laughing.
Yeah.
No one says sorry for laughing, but we all say sorry for crying. And we shouldn't be, because, even Jesus wept. Wept in the agony of garden, wept when his friend died. Weeping is natural. And grieving in a community, grieving together, healing together, is very powerful. And I have found that through the accompaniment of Patricia and Grief Care, through my family, through the community, I've been able to walk through that grief journey a lot better, which is why I started Heartfelt, the online platform. It's a space of trust. There's no judgment. There's no advice. We share stories and we honour our loved ones.
Yeah. And
we have a range of different people who come on. There's men, there's women, people with special needs come on. Now I'm having an annual Heartfelt Mass. So I had an annual Mass in July this year, 23rd July, at Santa Sabina Chapel. It was a Heartfelt Mass, and it was just, the community gets together, but there's all walks of life come to this beautiful Mass for us to honour our loved ones and it's about continuing the bonds. And I think doing that helps me to face my pain, sharing the stories about Veronique with others as they share their stories about their loved ones and how we're feeling at that moment. Just it's almost a sand grain each week that comes off, that sort of is taken off, that heaviness.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. Then we have a song, we have a blessing, and Grief Care also comes on for pastoral care. So what they do is they notice somebody's really struggling, they will call them, after or during the week and make sure that they're okay.
So that brings us to the last segment of this episode, which is the burning questions, where we fire at our guest a couple of rapid questions and get their quick responses. The Bible tells us to forgive 70 times 7. But Jesus talks about forgiveness and he tells us to forgive this many times, but he's God. We're human. What would you say to that?
I say, God, give me the strength, open my heart, and through opening my heart, I know I can do it.
Yeah. What advice do you have for women in the best way to deal with grief?
I encourage all women to reach out, to speak to someone. Don't hold it inside, and accompany yourself with your friends, your family. Go for a walk. Do something that makes you feel good.
So what would you say to the woman who is stuck in grief or in a period of mourning?
Try and think of good things. Try and get yourself in a place where you feel a little bit better, because it's easy to be stuck in grief. And the way I got myself unstuck is by talking about my daughter. Talk about, if you can, try and talk so that you're unstuck. And try and forgive. Try and let go of that heaviness.
Yeah.
That's really important.
What can women expect? I know we've spoken about grief, but what can women expect as they go through grief?
Loneliness.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows what you're feeling. I think also women can be stoic because they're trying to be brave and, you know, they could have a family that they're trying to make sure the household still runs or they've got a job, they've still got to go to work and, you know, provide. I think women will expect a lot of emotions going through, like every day, every hour, every minute is different. But let that be natural. It's okay. It's okay to be teary one minute and the next minute have a smile and have a laugh.
What's one of the byproducts of forgiveness?
The byproduct is freedom, actually. Freedom, and because you've let go. And that freedom is just a weight off your shoulders. And it allows you to kind of focus on good things that make you feel better.
Thank you so much, Bridget. It's been such a
Thank you,
gift
Bridget.
having
Thank
you
you.
join us and sharing your story. That's been such a beautiful gift.
Thank you, Von. Thank you, Karen. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. What an incredibly beautiful and heartfelt conversation about the journey of grief and forgiveness and how we can respond in the face of such tragedy and suffering.
Our stories are so sacred. All of us have a story of grief and loss, and we really need to learn to honour that. And Bridget has showed us how we can do that and how we can mourn and move forward and also practice forgiveness. We hope and pray that this episode has been a real blessing to you, and we look forward to you joining us again next week for Real Women.
Thank you for joining us today. To get the latest updates, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Shalom World Podcasts. Love this episode? We want to hear from you. Send us your feedback to podcast@shalomworld.org. With your support, we can keep sharing the Word of God with listeners across the globe. shalomworld.org/donate. For more information on Shalom World, our ministry, and our podcasts, visit shalomworld.org. We'll see you right back here next week. This podcast is available on all online platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and others.